Spontaneous speaking video 63. So for the past few days, few weeks, pretty much this whole summer so far, I haven't been putting out as much content as you guys most likely have noticed, because I've been having a lot of free time, and I could have been using that free time to put out content, but in actuality, I've been using the free time to intake a lot of information. I've been having a lot of different conversations. I've been reading a lot of different tweets, seeing a lot of Instagram posts, reading books, watching lots of Netflix. You can learn a lot from Netflix. Watching a lot of YouTube videos, reading a lot of Facebook posts, having a lot of internet discussions, things along those lines. And I have a whole list of things that I would like to speak on this summer. Especially a lot of things that may be controversial to a lot of Christians. But if you bear with me to the end, then you'll see it. Nonetheless, today what I wanted to actually speak about was something that I had been irritated about for a while, but yesterday kind of was just that tip off the edge that made me go off and start tweeting. So usually I come on here, as you guys know, to do my rants, and this time I decided to do something a little bit different, a little bit more handsy, I guess, and I decided to put my rant on Twitter. I came across another tweet. I'll just go ahead and say the rant, and then every now and then I'll pause, and I'll probably add a little bit more, or I'll probably elaborate more towards the end. So here we go. I just saw a tweet on my timeline. You know, one of those many tweets that brag on how many friends they have lost recently and let go of, referring to them as toxic. I want to quickly address that. I have lost/let go of people this year as well too. They were due to various reasons depending on the person, but I wouldn't go as far as to say they were all toxic. To hold a friendship together, certain needs must be met. Needs that may absolutely differ between both parties. This can be levels of attention needed, support, honesty, and my personal biggest, consistency. Consistency is so big. Understand that just because someone does not have the same needs as you have to keep a friendship, they are all of a sudden toxic. Let me say that again. Understand that just because someone does not have the same needs you have to keep a friendship, they are all of a sudden toxic. There you go. Needs can often change as well. We supposedly change every 7 years, as well as our taste buds, I believe, but that's aside from the point. Or maybe it's not. See, our taste in relationships are bound to change as well. Then the same ones you've had inevitably lose luster. Just because your personal preferences have now switched, or the other person's has, does not mean that either of you are toxic. Could it be that simply you just grew apart? Certain needs have changed or grew, and when they became unmet, the friendship severed. This also doesn't mean there are no such thing as toxic people, but I think we need to be far slower to call people toxic, especially when we have lacked time to observe ourselves by checking in and seeing if maybe, just maybe, we are the toxic one. That's huge. I've never ever been a fan of burning bridges. I'm incalculably forgiving, understanding, and often willing to put even the worst things aside for harmony's sake. That's not me being prideful. It's just naturally just how I am. So letting go of people who I once found extremely dear to me is probably my very hardest struggle. But it's necessary at times. Sometimes you just gotta understand that you two don't vibe as much anymore. And that's okay. When your needs aren't being fulfilled anymore, and that's just fact, no matter how sad it is. And then you move on maturely, not referring to them as toxic. I don't know. I just really dislike the idea of bashing someone you once called a friend, a dear friend at that. Even if they turned out to be someone you thought they weren't. Appreciate who you thought they were. their time in your life and keep that peace. Keep that peace. Yeah, first time is Piece. Second time is Peace. Play on words. But yes. So let me elaborate a little bit on that. If you didn't get everything from what I just said in there in that tweet, I'm very tired of people going back to the whole toxic thing. And I talk a lot about relationships and friendships and stuff like that here on my channel. I have that. Y'all probably don't know about the older videos, like when I first started spontaneous speaking videos. But I have one literally talking about how to properly text, like the 3 different types of texters, and I have the highway of like conversation. I have that video that I made with Kylisa on like 5 aspects of a healthy relationship, both platonic and romantic. I talk about idealizing, like your circle, things along those lines. I talk about seasonal friends. These are all there. So relationships, ENFJ, is just a really, really, really big thing for me. And that's just simply a human thing as well. Although a lot of people talk so often about how much they're cutting people off and everything that you would guess that it's probably not. But I've never really been a fan of bragging on how many people that I've cut off. I've never been a fan of, accusing people of being toxic, things along those lines. And it reminds me once again of my video. If you follow me long enough, you'll see that every single thing that I talk about in my videos can interconnect and relate to each other. I call that NI. But yeah. One of my videos where I talk about false victimization, I think that people who usually accuse other people of being toxic, not all the time, but probably like 70% of the time, they're usually the ones who are the toxic ones in the friendship. Especially if you're seeing that you're the common denominator. Like, why are you always having to accuse other people of being snakes? Why are you always the one who's having to cut people off? Like, clearly, maybe there's something that's wrong with you. And once again, I already done enough of that talking or like making you try to like look into yourself in the false victimization video. You guys should go check that out. Because it's a very healthy practice to really look back at yourself, to take out the splinter in the big toothpick out of your eye before you like take out the sawdust from other people's eyes. Matthew. But yeah, what I was talking about in there is just that, once again, I feel like we should be very slow to accuse people of being toxic. We should be extremely slow of accusing people of being fake, being whatever. We naturally grow apart from people. Just like I said, I believe that it's like every 7 years. Like, we're a different person like every 7 years, I'd hope that you would have grown. And that doesn't always mean that you're going to grow apart from somebody else. But just like I said, I'm, for example, someone who really needs consistency in the relationships that I have. I have to know where we stand. Like, if I have to know that if I'm thinking that you view me like up here, but in actuality I'm like over here, I gotta know that. I gotta know, like, okay, how often does this person want to talk? Now, I'm not gonna always, like, if ever, I'm never really gonna like ask you straightforward, like, hey, so do you think that we talk enough? Do you think that, or do you want to talk once a week, or do you want to like text, or like blah blah blah? Like, I'm not really gonna do that. I try to feel it out, but it's not always that simple. Even for me, like, it's very ambiguous a lot of times, and a lot of times people don't even really know what they want. I have friends who I think that we have fallen off, and then even just this morning, like an ISTJ girl, she texted me and she was like, this whole paragraph about like how much she values our friendship and yada yada yada. And I didn't think that we had fallen off, but I was just like, she often like leaves me on red, or like she can go like days without like texting me back and stuff like that. And so I'd often just like wonder like, oh well, did she forget about me? Because the way that I think about it is that you can't really you can't really forget to respond to someone if you're anticipating their response. So that's how I see it. That's how I see it. Like, oh, well, clearly I'm valued by this person because they're always, rushing to respond back to me, yada, yada, yada. We don't have to talk every day, but like that, I just like to literally know where I stand in someone's book. But everybody's book is different. Everybody's needs are different. The 5 love languages, if you guys have ever heard of that, everyone has like a different set of love languages, regardless of whatever personality type you are. Then, there's like upbringing and like all these different things. If your friend or your partner values quality time, but then secondary is physical touch, then, like if you're not touching a person enough, then even though you guys might be spending time together, then you're still not fulfilling like as much as you think that you may be fulfilling. And then if the person even doesn't really value quality time, but they value like gifts, then all this time that you're spending with the person, it's crazy. It sounds personally to me, because quality time is my number one. You can be spending mad time with the person, but they're not really feeling that love because their thing is, why hasn't this person really like given me a gift? I always give this person gifts, or stuff like that. So pretty much what I'm just saying is that there's so many different intricacies to people. To really pin someone down, I know I talk a lot about like the Myers-Briggs and all of that, but your personality type still in of itself is just a framework. Like I know ENFJs that I see lots of similarities between them and me, but I also see differences. If you guys go check out my video interview with Emrys, you guys can clearly see like similarities between us, but then you can also see like differences between us as well. Even with the video where I have Cameron and Bethany on there, like you can see the difference between Bethany and Jamila, who are both ISFP, and then the difference between me and Cameron, who are both ENFJ. So there's people are just so intricate. You go into upbringing, you go into the religion that they have or the faith that they have, or you go into the love languages that they have. You go into the Enneagram personality type that they have. You go into the culture that they grew up in. The experiences, everything. There's so many different things that can alter someone's needs. And especially as they continue to grow, then those needs start to like shift. They start to change. They start to evolve in certain ways. And sooner or later, then they end up outgrowing you. And it's not really always a bad thing. That doesn't mean the person is now toxic. Sometimes, and I had to learn this the hard way, sometimes people really are just seasonal. They're just passing through. And I really, really, really find that to be unsettling for me, because I personally love to have... I think of myself to be very intense when it comes to like friendships and relationships and stuff like that. Like I'm vigorous. Ugh, hate when I do that. But you guys know what I mean. Like I'm really intense with it. And so if I claim you to be my friend and I want to build depth. I think that like, oh, I know a lot of people, I'm cool with everyone. But if I'm like claiming you as like, no, you are my friend, and you're like in my inner circle, I want a type of depth that goes far beyond other people. Because look, even those of you who are like watching, a lot of people can claim like, oh yeah, I know Denzel, stuff like that. I'm giving a lot of myself out here to you guys, but the more that I'm giving out here, I want to like exponentially outclass that with those who are really close to me. That's intense, because already a lot of you probably think I give a lot over here. So imagine with those who I'm close to, Jamila, David, Bethany even, like people who are just really close to me, like I like to be like that intense with them. And a lot of people can't handle that. That doesn't mean they're toxic. It just means that there's different needs. There's different ways that we view a relationship, and that's okay. There's different ways that we view friendships. That's okay. So I want us to really get out of this mindset of accusing people. I really want us to get out of that mindset of accusing people. and I'm gonna have more videos kind of like focusing on different points of this, especially in one that I have coming up called Nuanced Nudity. Jamila came up with that title, and I'll explain what that is too, but in the video. But yeah, let's stop accusing people of being toxic. Let's stop victimizing ourselves. If we all looked into ourselves to find what the problem was within us, and we all like worried about ourselves and fixed ourselves, then imagine how much better the world would be. Really. Like, we're all out there trying to like accuse other people, pointing all of these other fingers, but we don't even look into ourselves. And once again, I addressed this in my video using other people as mirrors. You know, like all of these things are really interconnected, and I really want everyone to start embracing these things. I want everyone to start thinking in these ways to make it like a habit of really using other people as a mirror. Like, okay, I see this problem with that person, but wait, before I say that that problem's with that person, let me objectively look at myself and be like, hey, is this really a problem with me? I do this with Jamila all the time. As in, I go to her and I ask her like, hey, this is what I'm seeing in this person. Am I the same way? And Jamila's always super honest with me. I go to David, I go to like other people who know me, you know, and I look at myself. I'd like to think that I know myself, and you have to know yourself so that when other people try to tell you who you are, and they're wrong, then you can actually like, you know, push that aside. So if people try to tell you who you're not, then you'll know. But if you don't really know yourself, then it's like, oh, am I really that way? And sometimes I still struggle with that until I go to the people who I know me. Then I'm like, okay, now I know that person's actually wrong, and this is what I actually am. But you can't do that until you look into yourself. You have to do a lot of like ego hits, take a lot of ego hits. You have to really like set your pride aside and work on yourself. You have to be able to accept that you're not always the victim. In fact, rarely I've found you usually are the victim. Very rarely are you usually the victim. Someone's pretty much almost always at fault, even if it's a little bit. Find that fault within yourself, fix it, pray for the other person. Hopefully they'll find that fault themselves and fix it as well. But just know that don't title it so easily as toxic. Oh, that person is toxic. Now, another caveat to this, before I end it, is that you can have a toxic relationship without either of you being toxic. And this goes back to the needs. The needs, you have to know what you need in a relationship, the things that you desire. And I recommend that you go look at me and Khalisa's video, 5 aspects of a healthy relationship and everything. But look at what you desire, what you value in a friendship, in a relationship, and try and figure out what other people value too, so that you know how to accurately read them, how to accurately read your friendship. Some things that people could be needing, their desires, their needs, it could be draining for you. That doesn't make that person toxic. But to you, they could be toxic, and which makes the relationship toxic because it's draining to you. You could be draining to someone else, but that doesn't make you toxic. That doesn't mean that anything is wrong with you. That just means, like I said, how I said a few minutes ago, that I'm intense with my relationship and everything. I just know that like not everybody can handle being a close friend of mine, because the depth that I search for is really, really deep, and I'm not needy in the sense where I'm gonna like be texting you all the time, hey, I want attention. But the thing is, I want it in my head. So it's like I'm desiring that attention, but I'm not gonna go out and ask for it. I speak about this in the ENFJ problems, paradoxes, and patches video. So if you connect everything in my videos, you pretty much get a good idea of how I think and who I am. And I try to be authentic with these videos. Hopefully that my authenticity will be able to open up a lot of y'all's authenticity, and be able to look into yourselves. Me being vulnerable and everything, naked, which I'll be explaining more in the next video, will help you guys with being more comfortable in that, and we can just eventually see each other for who we are and embrace and appreciate that. But yeah, understand your needs and understand that your needs will definitely usually be different from other people's needs. That doesn't make you toxic. That doesn't make them toxic. Um, Sometimes it just is what it is. I hope that all of that made sense. I hope that you guys can take that advice and be sure to leave your questions, comments, concerns, and let's make this a discussion. So yeah, done.